Today we're talking about native image generation with the team behind the new model that we're releasing.
It's a giant quality leap. The model's state of the art, and we're really excited about both the generation and editing capabilities.
You can ask to, for example, render the character from different angles, and it will look like the exact same character.
When users interact with this, not only they're impressed by the quality of images, but they feel like, wow, this is smart.
And can kind of have a fun conversation with the model over multiple turns.
So I think this iterative process of creating is kind of the magic behind it.
And I think we're just scratching the surface on what these models can do.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Release Notes. My name is Logan Kilpatrick. I'm on the Google DeepMind team. Today we're joined by Kaushik, Robert, Nicole, Mostafa. These are the folks who are doing research and product for our Gemini native image generation model, which we're here to talk about today, which I'm super excited about. So Nicole, you want to kick us off? What's the good news? I'm excited to hear about the release.
Yeah, we're releasing an update to our image generation and editing capabilities in Gemini and 2.5 Flash. And it's a giant quality leap. The model's state of the art, and we're really excited about both the generation and editing capabilities. And why don't I just show you what the model does? Because I think that's the best way to kind of get that across.
I'm excited. And I played around with it once, but I have not done as much playing around as y'all have. So I'm excited to see some examples.
Great. I'm going to take a picture of you.
Okay.
And let's just start with, let's say, zoom out and show him wearing a giant banana costume. And keep his face visible because we want to make sure, it looks like you. All right. It's going to take a couple of seconds to generate, but it's still pretty snappy, which I think you remember from our last release. It was a pretty fast model.
This was one of my favorite things. I feel like this pace of editing makes these models a ton of fun to play with. Can you make it slightly bigger for me? You can go full screen, I think. Click on it.
Click on it.
Let me just click on this. So there we go. This is Logan. This is still your face. And what's awesome about this model is that this still looks like you, right?
Yeah.
Like this is you, but it's actually you're wearing a giant banana costume, and now there's a nice background of you walking through a city.
That's so interesting because this picture is in Chicago, and that actually is pretty much what that street looks like. So
world knowledge coming
on
this model. And now let's keep going, and let's say make it nano.
What does that mean? What does make it nano mean?
So
let's see
what the model does. When we first released it on Ella Marina, we gave it the code name nano-banana.
Yeah.
And people started speculating that it's an updated model from us, and it is a updated model from us. And there you go. Now the model takes you and creates this cute nano version of you wearing a giant banana costume.
I love that. That's awesome.
And the awesome thing here is obviously this was a very vague prompt, right? You were what does this mean?
I actually did not know what that meant.
But then the model's creative enough to kind of interpret it and then create a scene of this where that it fulfills your prompt and it still makes sense in the context and it keeps all the rest of the scene relevant. And this is really exciting because it's the first time I think that we're seeing kind of LLMs be really able to keep the scene consistent across these multiple edits and have users use really natural language to interact with the model, right? I don't have to put in a super long prompt. I'm just giving it very natural language instructions and can kind of have a fun conversation with the model over multiple turns. So that's super exciting.
I love that. How good is it at text rendering stuff, which is one of the use cases I care the most about?
Do you want me to put something on this picture? Why don't you give me a prompt?
Gemini Nano. I don't know. That's the only nano thing that comes to mind. I feel like this is the use case that I'm always trying to do is announcement tweets with billboards with text on them is what I love is my use case.
All right, let's go. There you go.
Nice. Cool.
And so this is a relatively simple text, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty small number of letters, easy words, and that worked really well. We do have some gaps in text rendering that we call out in the release, and we're working really hard on it. Folks on the team, Kaushik maybe can talk about that, are working on making text rendering even better in our next model.
I love it. Any other part of the, any other examples you want to show, or is there any other metric story around this launch? I know one of the challenges, and I'm curious actually how you all think about this, is the eval story is like a lot of human preference stuff. Is like what you're measuring. It's like hard to have like a sort. I think there's probably some things that you could have a source of truth on, but I'm curious how how y'all think about that for this release, but also just in general as we're training these models.
I think generally with like, multimodal stuff like image and video, it's like very hard to kind of like hill climb.
Yeah.
And, the kind of like historic approach has been to use like a bunch of human preference and kind of like hill climb that. Obviously like images are like super subjective. So you're kind of like getting like signal from a large group of people, and it takes time, right? It's not necessarily like the fastest metric, and it takes like real like hours to kind of get anything back from it. So generally like we've been working really hard to come up with like other metrics that we can like hill climb as like we train. And I think like text rendering has been a really interesting story, because like I think Kaushik has been talking about it for a long time, one of the like biggest advocates of it, and we were kind of like brushing him off for a long time about how like this guy's a little crazy, like he's really obsessed with text rendering, but eventually it kind of became like one of the staple things we looked at. And you can kind of think about it like when the model learns how to do this like structure for text, it's also kind of able to learn other structure in an image as well. And like in an image you have these like different like frequencies, and you can have like structure, which you can think of, but you can also have like texture and stuff like this. So it really gives you signal into like how good the model is at generating the structure of the scene. And I'll let Kaushik talk a bit more about it, because he's like the main guy.
Yeah, I'm also curious like what the initial conviction was. Is it just like as you were doing like a bunch of research experiments, like it became clear that this was the case? Or I'm curious to double click on it.
Yeah, I think it started from a place of figuring out what these models were bad at. So in order to kind of improve any model, you need a signal for what is not working well. And then you try a bunch of ideas, whether it's related to the model architecture, data, or other things. And once you have that clear signal, you can definitely make good progress on it. And I think if we go back a few years, there were pretty much no models that were doing a decent job, and even prompts that were on the order of short lengths, like this Gemini nano prompt here, for example. So as we spent more time looking into this metric and always tracking it, right? Whatever experiment we run now, if we track this metric, we can make sure that we don't regress on it. And just by virtue of having that as a signal, we might even find that changes that we didn't expect to make a difference here actually do make a difference, and then we can make sure we continue improving that metric over time. Yeah, and like Robert said, it's a great way to just measure overall image quality in the absence of other metrics for image quality that don't saturate very quickly, right? I think humans, I was actually a little bit skeptical of the human rater approach to doing evals for image generation, but I think what at least I've realized over time is when you have enough humans looking at enough prompts across a variety of categories, you actually do get quite a bit of good signal. But obviously this is expensive. You don't want to always be asking a bunch of humans to grade images. So looking at this text rendering metric, for example, while a model is training, gives you great signal as to whether it's performing like you expect.
That's super interesting. I'm curious about this interplay between the native image generation capability and the native image understanding capability. We did an episode with Ani, and that team has obviously been pushing super hard on like Gemini has state-of-the-art image understanding. Is it like a reasonable mental model as our models get better at understanding images? There's like some of that capability is actually transferable to generation as well, and vice versa. Like, is that?
I think like, so basically the hope is that we end up with native image generation or native multimodal understanding and generation, and learning all these modalities and different capabilities at the same model within the same training run, is that you want to end up having positive transfer across these different axes, right? And it's not only for understanding and generation for a single modality, but also it's about can we learn something about the word that is like from images or videos or audio that is going to be helping us on the text understanding or text generation. So for sure, image understanding and image generation are like sisters. So like we definitely see still they're like going hand in hand in interleaved generation, for example. But also the ultimate goal is to see like, let me just give you one example. So for example, language, we have this like phenomena that we call it like reporting biases. And what it means that you go to your friend's place, and when you come back, you never talk about their normal sofa in a conversation, right? But if you show someone an image of that room, it's there, right? So if you want to learn about a lot of things in the whole world, like images and videos, they have that information there without like, explicit explicit like request for those information. So what I want to say is that eventually with text you can look, or with like other modalities, you can learn a lot about different things, but it might take more tokens. So like visual signals are definitely a good shortcut for learning about the world. And back to the understanding and generation question, as I said, like these two hand in hands and coming into the like interleaved generation, you can see that there's actually a huge help from understanding to better generation and the other way around. So like, image generation can help like you draw something on the board to solve a problem. So maybe, you can better understand a problem that is given to you as a like a visual image. So maybe we can actually show some interleaved generation that is kind of related to understanding and generation going hand in hand with text as well.
Let me transform the subject into a 1980s American glamour mall shot in 5 different ways. All right, fingers crossed this works. Okay, this looks promising. Okay. And this takes obviously a little bit longer, right? Because we're trying to generate multiple images, and then we're also trying to generate the text that would describe what's in those images.
And one of the things that you'll notice about native image generation is that it's generating these images one after another. So the model may choose to look at a previous image and either try to generate something very different from it or try to generate a minor modification of it. It at least has that context of what is already generated. So that's what we mean by native image generation models. They have access to multimodal context, and then they generate an image.
Yeah, that's interesting. And my mental model had always been that it was like just, I guess maybe that doesn't even make sense, but it would have just been like 4 independent forward passes or something like that. But this is actually like all in a single.
It's all in the context of the model.
All in the context of the model. That's super interesting.
And what's nice is then the style is kind of similar, right? It's also, the model's doing this funny thing where it has you twice in every single one.
Interesting. Can we make some of these full screen?
I'm going to make some of this. So this is Arcade King Logan. If we scroll, this is Rad Dude. And see, like, none of these descriptions that go with the images were something that we came up with. The prompt was just like, you as a 1980s American glamour mall shot. Mall rat. You should consider some of these outfits.
Attire for...
And the 4th option, chill bro. See, and like, you have a different outfit in all of them. They all look like you. The fact that you were there twice is probably a little bit of a failure mode. But it's really cool to be able to see the model kind of come up with these 5 separate ideas, give them different names, give you different outfits, right? And like keep the character consistent. And this is not just useful for character building, but this is also useful if you have a picture of your room.
Yeah. And
you can say like, hey, help me decorate this in 5 different ways, right? And maybe you can go from like really creative to maybe something more conservative that's a little bit more incremental to what you're doing. And we've seen a lot of people on the team already using it to like redesign their gardens and homes. And it's been really cool to see that more kind of like practical application, not just us making fun of.
Yeah, I vibe
80s Logan.
I vibe coded for my girlfriend in AI Studio, actually, an app to visualize her office with every different color of blinds or of curtains, and she was like, I don't know what curtain color is going to fit this vibe, so it literally just this was with 2.0 and I'll have to retry it with 2.5, check all the different vibes. It actually worked really well. It was like a very helpful and like doesn't sometimes with 2.0, and actually this will be a good thing to retest, sometime with 2.0 it would like change the bed or like change like other artifacts would change, not just the curtain. So it was interesting to see that use case, one of my favorites.
You should give it a try. The model does a pretty good job keeping the rest of the scene consistent.
Yeah.
And we call this kind of pixel perfect editing. And that's really important, right? Because sometimes you want to just edit that one thing in your image, but you actually want everything else to stay the same. Like, again, if you're doing character building, you just want to turn the character's head, but like everything that they're wearing needs to be the same. across the scenes. And the model's really good at that. It will not always 100% work, but we're really excited about how far it's come.
Robert, you're gonna say something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think one really cool thing is like just how fast it is still, right? Like, you know,
Well, how long was this whole
Yes, all
generation?
right, let's give this a, this is 13 seconds.
Wow.
so I think each image was,
Each image was 13 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Ish.
and so
Okay,
like,
this is the cumulative now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cumulative.
This is
pretty solid.
me, not the AI studio.
yeah. So I think like the cool thing is like even when 2.0 came out, I was using it for very similar things. Like I had a bookshelf, I had all the stuff on the ground. I'm like, decorate this. Like what configuration of these items should be placed on my bookshelf? And my girlfriend might not have agreed with the output. So like sometimes we want to like iterate on that. And so like rerunning it really quickly and iterating. So even if sometimes like it kind of like fails, you just tweak the prompt, rerun it, and you get something like really good afterwards. So I think this like iterative process of creating is kind of like the magic behind it.
And any difference in how folks who had tried 2.0 as an example, and like one of the examples for me using 2.0 was like wanting to be like do only single edits, like one at a time. Like if you had said, like if you had asked it to like change 6 different things, like the model would sometimes not do a great job of that. Any of those, like, is that still something that you should still do, like those like type of targeted edits with this model, or any other just like general like usability or like things that folks should know as they're playing around with the model?
This is something that I wanted to mention basically. So one of the magics of interleaved generation is that it offers you to do a new paradigm for image generation, right? Like, so if you have a very complex prompt, you're talking about 6 different edits. What if I go with like 50 different edits, right? So now that the model has a really good mechanism to grab information from the context, like pixel perfect, and use it in the next turn, what you can do is you can ask the model to break down the complex prompt, either it is editing or for image generation, into multiple steps and do edits like one by one over different steps. So for the first one, you do this like edits, like these 5 different things. And then for the next one, the next 5, and so on and so forth. So it's like very similar to the test on compute that we have on the language side, right? So you spend more flops and you let the model to bring basically this thinking in the kind of like the pixel space, plus breaking it down into smaller pieces that you can like really nail down that specific stage, but like accumulate it, you can do whatever complex task you want, right? So I think like, again, this is the magic of interleaved generation, that you can think about, incremental generation of like really complex images, as opposed to traditional way of doing it, which was like really pushing hard for getting the best image in one shot, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a capacity that you can push the model. At some point you realize that, okay, with 100 details, we cannot do that. But when you have this one interleaved generation, breaking it at steps, you can always go for any capacity and any complexity that you want to generate.
One of the things that's always top of mind for me, especially as like Nicole, you're also the PM for our Imagine models. How should people think about developers or just like people who have knowledge of all the models, like Imagine versus this like native capability that we have?
Yeah, and this, but our goal is to always like build one model with Gemini, right? So ultimately our goal is to always like bring all the modalities into Gemini so we can benefit from all the knowledge transfer that Mostafa was talking about, and ultimately build towards AGI, right? On the way there, there's a lot of usefulness out of having specialized models that are just very, very good at a specific thing that you need them to do. And Imagine is an amazing model for text-to-image generation, right? And we have a lot of different Imagine variants that also do image editing, and those are available in Vertex. And they're just optimized for that specific task, right? So if you just want text-to-image and you want just one image out of that model, you want really amazing visual quality, and you also want that to be really cost-effective and kind of snappy in generation time, Imagine is the place to go, right? If you want some of these kind of more complex workflows where you want to generate with the model, but then you also want to edit in that same workflow and you want to do it across multiple turns, or you want to do some of this like ideation, like we were doing with the model of like, what design ideas could you help me come up with for, my room or this library, then Gemini is the place to go, right? So it really is kind of that more multimodal, like creative partner where it can output images, it can output text. You can be kind of less precise with the instructions that you give to Gemini, because like when we, at the beginning we said like make it nano, because it has that kind of world understanding and will just more creatively interpret your instructions. But Imagine is still a great family of models for developers to go to if they want like a super optimized model for that specific task.
Yeah, one of the examples I was trying today, and I'm curious what your take is on which model, or like if the native image generation model fixes this problem, was I was saying like generate this image and like make the this is my dumb billboard use case. I was like, make the billboard use case. I need billboards. Make the billboard the style of some company that I mentioned. Is that something that like native image generation benefits from because it's like a little bit better at this world knowledge piece relative to like Imagine being like really good at if you give it a good prompt, but like less good at the like in understanding implying my prompts?
Your actual intent behind the problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. The other part is with native image generation, if you just want to grab that style reference that you have from that other company that you were trying to emulate the style of, you can also insert that into the model and use that as a reference, right? So the fact that you can then also input an image as a reference like helps with that prompt, and that is just easier to do in Gemini natively than it is in Imagine. So you should try it. You should let us know. We should add this to our evals.
I'll let you know whether the billboard I'll make a billboard eval.
We'll have a Logan eval.
I love that. Back to this thread of like the progress from 2.0, one of the most fun things was when that model launched, people were sending us tons of feedback about the experience in AI Studio, and then ultimately the Gemini app, just like general failure modes for the model and all that stuff. I made my only contribution to the original launch, which was adding that hot tag in AI Studio. We're bringing the hot tag back for this model actually, and it's going to go away on the other model. What can we talk about that story of just like the progress and like the failure modes that we did get a ton of feedback on, of like things that didn't work well for 2.0 that now hopefully work well for 2.5?
Yeah, I mean, we literally sat on like X or Twitter and like went through a bunch of feedback, and literally I remember like Kaushik and I and some of the other team like gathering all the failure cases and making evals out of that. So we have like a benchmark that we take from like real user feedback just from Twitter, and it's just people adding us and saying like, hey, this didn't work. And like for every model we make in the future, we kind of just like append to that, so that we know, for example, like when we release 2.0, one of the failure cases sometimes we would see is like if you edit, it would add your edit, but it wouldn't necessarily be consistent with like the rest of the image, right? So that was like one of the things that was like in that, and then we hill climbed, and then there's plenty more. So kind of we're always just like gathering that feedback.
Yeah, send us the examples that don't work well. Any ones for you all that like particularly stand out of things that like just did not work before that now is like a slam dunk? I don't know if there's anything top of mind. You all play with, I think the team plays with this model, I think, so much I assume in the process as we're actually building it and bringing it to life. I don't know if there's any like go-to use cases for you all to test and like, is this actually a good model?
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed specifically while playing with the 2.5 model is that in the 2.0 model, actually, one of the things that we thought was going to be hard was consistency from image to image, but specifically the cases where you have an object or say like a character that you're building and you want that character to remain consistent across images. And if you actually leave the character in the same place that it was in the input image, it turns out that this is actually quite easy, and the 2.0 model could do this really well. It could, for example, add a hat, change the expression and stuff like that, while kind of keeping the pose and overall structure of the scene the same.
Yeah.
What the 2.5 model adds on top of what these capabilities look like in 2.0 is that you can ask to, for example, render the character from different angles, and it will look like the exact same character, but from, for example, the side. Or you could take a piece of furniture and place it into a completely different context, reorient it, and create a whole scene. But that piece of furniture, it would remain faithful to the original that you uploaded while transforming it in very substantial ways, not just taking the input image and pasting kind of those pixels into the output image.
I love that. One of the reactions that I had about some of the 2.0 stuff was sometimes the images would almost look like, as you would do like add something, like I picture of my face and add a goofy mustache or a hat or something, it almost looked like it was like superimposed or was like kind of like photoshopped onto it. Is that something that is also like similar to this like character? It's like, it seems tangential to this character consistency, but it feels like it's a similar-ish problem where it's just like taking pixels from memory and like putting them into the image almost versus the pixel transfer. I'm curious if that's like a capability that's improved.
Yeah, and I think that comes down a lot to the actual teams working on this model. The previous model, actually, we were kind of the mindset that, okay, it did the edit, that's it, like it was successful. But when we started working more and more closely with the Imagine teams, they would look at the same exact edit that we were looking at from the Gemini side, and they'd say, this is terrible. Why would you ever want the model to do something like this, right? So this is one example where blending the perspectives from both teams. So on the Gemini side, the instruction following, world knowledge, all of these things. And then on the Imagine side, making the images actually look natural, aesthetically pleasing, and genuinely useful. So I think it takes both of these, and having these teams work together on this led to 2.5 being much better at the stuff you're describing.
I love it.
Yeah, and just on that point, we actually have folks on the team who mostly come from the Imagine team who have like a really honed aesthetic taste. And so a lot of the times when we do evals, they will actually just look at like hundreds and thousands of images and be like, no, this model is better than this other model. And a lot of other people on the team will kind of look at it and be like, okay, like like you kind of have to hone that, I think, like sensibility over a couple of years. And I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. But there's definitely people on the team who are like amazing at it, and we always go to them when we try to pick between models.
Can you train auto raters on people's like personal?
We haven't been able to do it yet.
Fun side project.
And that's a fun side project. I'm very excited for as Gemini gets better, kind of an understanding to have like an aesthetic auto rater based on one of the folks on the team who's really amazing at this.
Just put that person to provide training signal for
Yes. This is we'll take that as a side project after this.
I love that. Lots of progress on 2.5, and obviously I think folks are going to be super excited to try out the model and all that stuff. What comes next? We've made a great model. I'm sure we have more stuff cooking in the pipeline, but I don't know how much we want to say about the future direction and what other capabilities hopefully will land in the future.
So when it comes to image generation, I think like we do care about the visual quality, but I think one thing that is again like new and we want this with like unified Omni model is smartness. Like you want your image generation model to feel smart. When users interact with this, not only they're impressed by the quality of images, but they feel like, wow, this is smart. Like one example that I have in mind, and I'm looking forward to see this happening, and it's a bit controversial because I cannot even define it well, is when I ask the model to do something, it doesn't follow my instruction, but it does something that at the end of the generation, I say, I'm glad that it's like, it didn't follow my instruction. It's even better than what I actually described, right? Like, so it has this kind of like edge to it that,
is that like you think the model is like intentionally doing this, or it's like it's like kind of an unintended accident? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it's not just that, but it's basically, like sometimes, under specified, or sometimes you think wrong about like something that is a reality, but outside world with like the knowledge of Gemini, it's different from your perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I think again, like it's not intentional or what just like happens organically. And I think again, like you just feel that I'm interacting with a system that is like smarter than me, right? And when I'm asking for some images, like I don't mind if it goes like off the rail with my prompt and generate something that is different from what I asked, because it's most of the time better than what I had in mind. So I think definitely smartness, like in high level, is the direction that we are pushing forward while maintaining the visual quality or improving it. But there are so many specifics and capabilities and use cases, especially for developers, that I think like this release has some, but next release is going to be like also like, and yeah, we have like these coming releases in the pipeline. I cannot share about the timeline, but it's just like so exciting. And yeah, maybe I should, yeah. But I'm so excited. I'm like happy, and the momentum is like unmatched here, like on the image generation side.
I love that. Any other capabilities folks are excited about?
I'm really excited about factuality. And so that kind of like goes back to the point that like sometimes like maybe you need to make a little diagram or like an infographic for a work presentation, right? And like it's amazing if it looks nice, but that's not enough, right, for that use case. Like it actually has to be accurate. That you can't have any extraneous text. Like it just kind of has to both look good and also be functional for that purpose. And I think we're just scratching the surface on what these models can do with that. And I'm really excited about like some of these upcoming releases, like us getting better at that type of use case. So that like my dream one day is that like these models can actually make a slide deck for me for work that like looks nice.
This is every PM's dream.
Every PS dream. I'm trying to outsource that part of my job to Gemini.
Yeah.
And I think we play a really big part in it. So.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I think folks are going to be super excited to try these models. Thank you, all four of you, and for the rest of the team for making this happen. So I appreciate all the hard work. I'm excited for this. And thanks everyone for watching Release Notes. We'll see you in the next episode.